Peter Schiff, CEO at Euro Pacific Capital, joins us from Connecticut. Peter, evening to you. So, do you think they're going to find happiness, both sides of the aisle, or do you think it's irrelevant?
Well, I do think they're going to raise the debt ceiling, and they're going to end the so-called government shutdown. I mean, I've known that all along. This is political theater. This is drama. They create a phony crisis so they can then save us from it and pretend that they've done us a favor. But ultimately, we're going to have a real economic crisis in America, and it's not because they fail to raise the debt ceiling, but because they succeed. Because the real crisis is the debt. We're broke. We can't afford to pay our bills. That's why we keep raising the debt ceiling. When our creditors realize how broke we are, they're going to impose a lending ceiling, and we can't raise that. And that's when we have a real meltdown here in the United States.
You know, as part of the barking back and forth, President Obama had said, tried to offer a branch to Boehner and say, look, just don't hold, don't shut the government down to do this because of your ideology. We will have these discussions about changes to entitlement, changes to the tax regime, and we'll talk about payouts and, how the government spends its money. I mean, do you see any sincerity from the president at all, or is that just lip service?
Look, there's no sincerity on either side. They're going to talk, but they're not going to do anything. Because doing something means telling the truth. It means leveling with the American people that the government can't deliver on all the promises they made to get everybody's votes. So nobody wants to do that. Even the Republicans, I mean, just delaying Obamacare for a year, even if they were to accomplish that, it would do nothing to alter the trajectory that we're on. We're headed for a real economic crisis. We're headed for a dollar collapse and a sovereign debt crisis. And nobody cares. It's just full steam ahead and continue over, towards the edge of that cliff.
So have you taken money off the table in the U.S. markets, Peter?
Well, I mean, I don't have much money there to take off the table. I mean, the money I have invested in the U.S. is mainly in the energy sector and other raw materials. I mean, I generally try to invest abroad. I think that there's much better opportunities and a lot less, minefields if you invest outside the United States, because we're going to have this currency crisis and an economic collapse worse than 2008. That's not a great environment to be investing in the United States. And I don't think the next crash is going to look like the '08 crisis, where everybody rushed to the dollar and rushed to the U.S. Treasury market. That bought us some time. I think they're going to flee the dollar, flee the Treasury market. We're telling the world that default is inevitable. We said if we don't raise the debt ceiling, then we have to default. That means we can only pay our bills so long as we can borrow the money to do it. But you don't pay your bills by going deeper into debt. And when our creditors realize that all we can do is pay them back with our own money, but they're never actually going to get paid back, then they're not going to keep on lending. And then all we've got is the Fed and the printing press, but then all they can do is print dollars that nobody wants, and then we have this real crisis, and that's not going to be a good environment for U.S. assets. You're much better off investing in foreign stock markets, in foreign currencies, in commodities, in precious metals, than being in the U.S. market. And if you're going to be in the U.S. market at all, you want to avoid financials, you want to avoid home builders, retailers, any companies that are exposed to the U.S. consumer or to the credit markets.
Peter, have you considered hopping onto this website, drunkdialcongress.org, and actually making a phone call to some of the people that matters in the government? To Drunk Dial Congress.
They don't listen to me. I mean, there are some people in Congress that pay attention to what I say, but their numbers are too small to actually make a difference. Most of them are too concerned about getting reelected. They can't see past the next election, so they don't want a crisis on their watch. But the fact of the matter is, if we're ever going to solve our economic problems, we have to allow the economy to restructure. That's going to involve some short-term pain, but none of the politicians are willing to allow the electorate to endure it. They would rather postpone that pain, hopefully beyond the next election, even if what they do to postpone it makes it much worse. If we didn't raise the debt ceiling, then we would have to face the problems right now. But we're going to raise the debt ceiling because nobody wants to deal with these problems right now.